Welcome to Outlook Training. This isn't just a course on Outlook. We're going to learn not just the intricate details of what Outlook can do, we're going to look at how we can use Outlook as a tool to learn small tactics to work smart and adjust things on a day-to-day basis to increase your productivity. In this session, we're going to look at what productivity means. That includes the key components of workload management. We're going to identify major productivity pirates. We're going to talk about the productivity formula and how to apply the 4D formula. Be smart with your approach. Let's begin with defining for ourselves what working smart looks like. When you think about working smart, what does that mean for you at work? Do you get your work done on time? Do you work well with colleagues? Do people trust you? Are you capable, confident in your work? And do you have the ability to support others? Does how you work smart change in your personal life? And what does that look like? Often it looks like we have time for friends, we have time to do the things that we love, we can have time to travel, and often we're financially secure. So some of the benefits and why this is so important about talking about working smart is because it helps with managing stress, allows us to relax, and gives us a sense of being in control. In order to get organized and break down how work gets done, we need to understand a little bit more about workload management. Previously, work was accomplished on an assembly line. Roles and tasks were clearly defined before that task moved on to the next person in the line. But at the start of the century, most people work on now what is called an invisible assembly line. We now are known as what is called knowledge workers. We deal with ideas, information, and people. We often need to use our knowledge and skills to determine how and what work to get done. This changes how we manage our workload. We manage our workload using what's called a priority productivity platform. And there's three main components of this platform, including decide, do, and deliver. Priority management has 8 distinctive processes which make up the invisible assembly line. The first section is the decide section, the planning phase. In this phase, you need to define your purpose. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is the big picture? How is what I'm doing related to the overall goal? You need to establish goals. These goals provide you with direction. They often can be used like a roadmap to get the work done. In that planning or establishing goals, do you set deadlines? Do you create lists of tasks to complete in order to get something larger completed? Next, you need to look at focusing your resources. You need to think about what tools are needed for the job and what people are key to involve. We move on then to the doing section. So this is where we need to manage priorities. We need to decide what order and what is the level of importance of each item that needs to be completed. We need to think about measurement. How do we keep score? Keeping score is important because it actually drives performance and can impact work. If you just think about when you play on a team sport, does the team play the same when they're a goal down or when they're 7 goals up? And finally, we move to the deliver section. So this is where we actually meet the goals that we were trying to achieve. This is where you need to take ownership, which includes accountability and responsibility. In both successes and failures, you are leading the execution. You often need to influence participants and have to sell what you're trying to accomplish to others. You may need their involvement, and this part includes a lot of communication. And finally, you want to continue to improve. We need everybody to buy into continuous improvement. The first launch is often not always perfect. We need to reflect, revise, and then try the process again. Now we're going to talk about what your productivity pirates might be. What are some of the external and internal barriers that you experience at work that stops you from being productive? What stops you from working efficiently through the invisible assembly line? There are many things that can interrupt our work, including both external items that are not in your control and internal items that you may be able to control. When we look at external items, we need to look at what stops you from working smart and achieving your best. Sometimes it's things like staff absences, unexpected staff shortages, equipment breakdowns. Maybe it's people dropping in, making last-minute requests. You may have family obligations. You might just be burnt out in the wrong frame of mind. Some of the internal items that can affect your productivity might be things like distractions, maybe talking or visiting too much. Maybe it's taking on too much, which actually is the #1 productivity killer. Taking on too much includes the failure to say no, to delegate your work, or to prioritize what's most important. Research tells us that productivity pirates rob you of your ability to focus on crucial tasks. We have a drive to be doing, we want to get started, but sometimes this can be very unproductive if lack of planning causes a lot of delays, errors, and rework. Planning should happen on the side and not the doing phase. Take some time to think about what some of your external and internal productivity pirates might be. Interruptions in our workday are inevitable, but what is the impact of those interruptions? It's estimated that office workers are interrupted every 11 minutes, and then it takes an average of 25 minutes to return to the original task, making the impact of an interruption 2 or 3 times its duration. We estimate that 1 hour of uninterrupted work is equivalent to 3 to 4 hours of productive time. We will talk about how important that uninterrupted time can be in your overall productivity and how we can use Outlook as a way to keep us on track. We're now going to look at the 4D formula. Whether you're working on a large project or day-to-day operational tasks, planning is vital, and the Outlook system is a tool that holds the plan together. To help you make decisions quickly and to reduce your mind traffic, we're going to use the 4 Ds of planning. When you're posed with a list of tasks to do or obligations, the 4 Ds will help you with prioritizing and dealing with those items quickly. The 4D formula helps you get things off your plate fast and easy. So the first item is do it now. Is it something that you have to look after? Can you do it now? Is it a task that will take 1 to 3 minutes to complete? The next one is date activate it. If it'll take longer than 1 to 3 minutes, you need to estimate the time that that particular task is going to take and schedule it in. Delegate it is something someone else can complete. You need to ask yourself, do I add value to that particular task, or is it more suited for somebody else to complete? And finally, there's delete it. This is where we're looking if there's value in the task at all. You make the quick decisions on these. Is this something that I need to spend time on? What's the worst can happen? If you make the wrong decision and you delete something, and it's something that's important or that you should be looking at, it certainly will come back and you can make another decision to do it, date activate it, or delegate it. So now that we have 4 ways to look at each individual task, what order should you run through the 4 Ds? The first thing you should do and should ask is, can I delete it? The second is, can I delegate it? The third is actually do it now, which is often the one that we start with. So we're going to try 2 steps before we do it now. And the fourth is to give some thought if it's something that's going to take longer than 1 to 3 minutes. It's something I need to schedule in so I can dedicate time to completing that task. And overall, what we want to have is that when we're going into our inbox and looking at different emails and tasks that are being presented to us, that we end up touching it once. Many people get stuck in what's called the busyness trap. They're busy all day doing things, they're calling people, emailing. By the end of the day, they feel like they've accomplished very little. We're going to look at what's called the value add matrix to determine the urgency and the importance of some of your activities. I want you to think about the last couple days at work. And as we're going through each of the quadrants in the busyness trap, we want you to classify them in one of the 4 areas. So the first area we're going to talk about is important and urgent. This is often called the crisis management quadrant. It's where you feel like you're fighting fires all the time. Things are coming at you, you're tackling those as they come up, and you're in this cycle of feeling like things are coming at you at 100 miles an hour. The second quadrant is called the important, not urgent, and it's labeled as more proactive. It's our continuous improvement quadrant. So when you're thinking in the sense of, fire protection, it's the fire prevention part. It's the part how we prepare and have some forethought of how we can accomplish different things or prevent, an emergency from happening. The next quadrant is the urgent and not important quadrant. And this is the one where we look at delegation and whether or not our involvement is necessary in accomplishing this particular task. The fourth is called the not urgent, not important. And these are the things that tasks that we do at work that are more habitual, things that you do without thinking about them, and you often don't think about the why or what value maybe those tasks bring to your day. This particular quadrant can take up to 30% of our time. And so it's one that we really need to evaluate and see whether or not those tasks are important and adding value to our productivity. So we want to see that things are moving from that number 1 quadrant, that crisis management, into number 2, which is where we want to invest in. We often don't invest in that continuous improvement because there's no immediate gratification for our results. It's things like, team building, that proactive wellness and planning. That number 1 category, that crisis management, you're checking things off in a day, and you can feel a sense of accomplishment. So you don't always see the results like you would in number 1 if you're trying to accomplish your task in number 2. But that's the goal. That's where work becomes a lot less stressful for you. So again, I want you to think about maybe what your tasks were over the last couple days, and I want you to plot them out in the 4 quadrants and see whereabouts the majority of your tasks are falling, and then start to ask some of the questions we talked about. Is this something I could delegate? Do I add value to this particular task? Is this something we could maybe do better or more efficiently? And if I'm always in crisis management, why is that happening? And part of what we're going to do when we look at those is we're going to try to use tools like Outlook in order to get us out of that crisis management situation. Okay, now we're going to start Unit 2, setting yourself up. So we're going to set up and configure Outlook. We're going to use Outlook tools for managing to-dos. And we're going to look at Outlook tools to manage some of our communication. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the functions that are available when you work with Outlook. Many of us are very knowledgeable that Outlook is a tool to work with email, but Outlook also has a number of different functions that can help us with planning our schedule and our day. So the first section is on time and activities. There's a calendar function, and this is where we'll manage our meetings and our fixed time commitments. You'll look at how you can view your calendar by month, week, day, and that's in an effort to get a clear picture of what your schedule and your workload is in those particular time periods. We're also going to look at the task function. Task folders allow us to manage all of our tasks and to-dos, all those things that were tackled within our day. You can modify the view and the to-do bar, and that's in an effort to help you organize and prioritize your work. So the second section is about people and digital, and so there's where the inbox or our email falls. The inbox folder is where you manage your emails. We're going to look at strategies and best practices to make sure that our inbox is empty at the end of every day. You'll learn how to set up our folders and keep things for future reference. And finally, we're going to talk about contacts. And contacts is probably one of the things that's you probably underutilize or don't use at all. It's not just where we store contact information for people, but we actually can store and document our conversations and our interactions with those contacts in this particular function. So for example, if you have a phone call that you have to return, you could keep track of that conversation and those commitments that you're making in the contacts function. Creating your home-based view in Outlook. First, we're going to click on the calendar label at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. When we click on that, it takes us to our calendar. We want to ensure we're on the Home tab, and we're going to move to the middle of the screen under Arrange and click Day. You can expand the folders on either side by hovering over the line and seeing that there's a double bar with 2 arrows. You can make adjustments so that you can view your folders on the left-hand side, as well as eventually we'll be able to view our task lists once we set that up. Displaying the to-do bar in the calendar view. In your calendar, click the View tab at the top of the screen. Click the to-do bar under Layout, and we want to make sure that Tasks is checked off. Now we also want to fix displaying your daily task list. So on the View tab, we're going to go to the Layout and click on Daily Task List. When the drop-down menu comes out, we're going to check Normal. The daily list now appears at the bottom of your calendar for that day. On the View tab, again, we're going to click on Daily Task List, and we're going to pick Arrange By from the drop-down menu. We're going to ensure that By Start Date is checked, and now your task list at the bottom of your calendar should show in Arranged By Start Date. We're going to do some adjustments on when your calendar opens. So now we're going to click on the File tab on the top right left-hand corner. When we click on that, we're going to go to the bottom left-hand side and click on Options. This will open up a dialog box. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on Advanced. On the Advanced tab, you can see that Outlook Start and Exit has some selections you can make. We're going to click on the Browse button and choose Calendar. And then click OK. This will ensure that when you open up Outlook, you no longer open to your inbox, but rather to your calendar. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the Mail option on the left-hand side. And we're going to go down to Message Arrival options. We want to ensure all the boxes are unchecked under when a new message arrives. We're now going to go to Calendar, and we're going to go to Calendar Options. And under Default Reminder, we're going to uncheck Default Reminder. Next, we're going to click on Tasks, and we're going to uncheck under Task Options, Set Reminders on tasks with due dates. And finally, we're going to click OK. We will now look at customizing our to-do bar. First, we're going to click on the clipboard with a check mark at the bottom left-hand corner of Outlook. This opens up our to-do list, and we're going to go to the columns at the top here and right-click on any one of them. When I right-click, it opens up a drop-down box, and we're going to select View Settings. Once clicking View Settings, you'll open up a dialog box for the advanced view settings for our to-do list. We're going to click on the first button labeled Columns. And under Select Available Columns From, we're going to choose All Task Fields. So on the left-hand side, you'll see available columns, an add button, and on the right-hand side, you'll have items that are listed under show these columns in this order. If you have items listed in the right-hand box, I'm going to get you to remove all of those, and we'll start from the beginning. So the first item we're going to add is icon. So these are in alphabetical order, so you're going to find icon in the list, and you're going to click Add. And then you can see it move over into the right-hand box. The next one we're going to look for is subject, add, complete, start date, and finally due date. And then we're going to click OK. And now you'll see listed along beside columns are the items that we selected. The next one we're going to click on is Group By. So we're going to select that. And then what we're going to do in the first column is, first of all, make sure that this is unchecked, where it says automatically group according to this arrangement. In the group items by, we are going to make sure that complete is selected and that the ascending button is chosen. We also want to make sure that the show field in view is checked off. Then by, we're going to make sure has the drop down selected of priority and the descending radio dial selected. And we're going to uncheck show field in view for that one. And then we're going to say okay. All right. The next button we're going to select is the sort button. And it comes up sort items by. And the first thing we're going to pick is subject. And then we're going to make sure that those are sorted ascending. And then we're going to click OK. We're then going to click on the filter button. And under the Advanced tab, we're going to click on this field button below. And then we're going to choose all task fields. And we're going to select date completed. Under condition, we're going to select today. And then we're going to click add to list. And then what you will see is it will appear up here at the top, date completed today. Next, we're going to click on that field button again and choose all task fields. This time we're going to look for start date. And under condition, we're going to select on or before. In the value field, we're going to type today. And then you're going to click add to list. And what you'll see is then it will be added up here with what you typed in. We're going to click on that field again. All task fields. We're going to look for start date again. Oops, all task fields, start date. And then under condition, we're going to put does not exist. And you're going to click add to list. And once you've done that, you're going to say, okay. You get this one button. Excellent. So then we're going to click on other settings. And we're going to ensure to uncheck use compact layout in width smaller than 80 characters. So this guy here, make sure it is unchecked. And then we'll say okay. So now we're going to talk about connecting your work through the use of categories. Outlook can be an effective tool for managing your workload. You can keep track of all Outlook items associated with projects, customers, business, etc. by using the categories feature. So if you like to look at things in color-coded or to sort in a visual way, categories can be quite helpful to you. So to customize the master category list for your use, what we're going to do is we're going to create a task, appointment, meeting, or contact. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open up the categories tab. So I'm on my calendar right now and I already have an appointment scheduled. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to look at maybe changing the color of this so that I know that's a meeting with regional HR. So what you can do is you can go to this item and you can actually right click on the item and that will bring up a dialog box. And we're going to look for the item that says categorize. And when I hover over that, what it does is it opens up all of the categories I currently have created. Now, if this is something that you find that you don't have something that fits within the current categories, I'm going to show you how you can create a new one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom here where it says all categories, and that will actually open up the color categories. So there's many colors that you can use. And so when we go to create a new item, we click on the new button over here. And so we would create a name for it. So maybe I'm going to call it HR Regional. And then I'm going to pick a color. So you're going to try to choose one that you haven't used already. And I'm going to say, okay. And so now you can see HR Regional has been added to my list. And I'm going to say, okay. So when I now click on that, you can see that it's changed color. So going forward, every time that I want to categorize something in that particular item, I can go in here and find all my categories. Looks like I have more than enough, and you can see that HR Regional is already chosen. So let's say I have another item on mine and I want to change the color of that. I would be able to find those items and change them on here. So it's just another way to be able to visualize maybe what your schedule looks like. Okay, now we're going to talk about using tasks and some of the best practices that we're going to follow when managing our tasks. So the first one is we need to determine if the task is fixed or flexible work. So fixed work belongs on your calendar. You want to schedule time in. Flexible belongs on our task list or our to-do bar because we have control, a little bit of control over when those particular items are completed. The second one is you should use that priority value add matrix to determine the urgency and the importance of the task. So you need to look at, is this your urgency or someone else's? Could this task be delegated? And is it a task that aligns with the goals and objectives of what your department or the retailer are trying to accomplish? So does it add value? The third is we are going to identify how long will the task take and when is it due? And to do this, we're going to apply that 4D formula that we talked about to decide when we need to do this particular task. If you are scheduling, don't underestimate the time required to complete the task. If you're unsure, double the time. Often what we do is we cram in too many things in a day and we don't accomplish all the tasks that were priority for that particular day, and then they go to the next day and the next day and the next day, and then it compounds to a situation where you're again out of control. So number 4, we only schedule as many tasks as you can comfortably accomplish in a day. Overscheduling and underestimating the time lets yourself down and others down often. What happens when we do that is it leads to feelings of anxiety, chronic stress, and failure. So although we know that there's many things we need to do in a day, we really need to spend the time to decide what activities we're adding value to and what ones can wait. Number 5 is we want to use actual start dates as the trigger for action. So think of the end date to manage expectations of others and yourselves. So all tasks usually have a deadline, a time where you need to have it done. But if we plan our day around the deadline, what happens is we don't have enough time to prepare and plan. If you're waiting until the deadline to start something, you're probably going to feel a lot of pressure and stress to get that done. So we want to manage our time based on a start date, so that proactive planning. So number 6 is prioritize your task. So we're going to talk about high and normal priority. So a high priority is important and must get done that day. So the start and due date on your task are the same date. If it's a normal priority, it's something that's also important, but it could be done on another day. So your due date and your start date are going to be different. I have a third one that I use is the low priority, and those are just things that are important that I want to keep track of, but don't specifically maybe have an end date. So they sit in that low priority item. 7 is sequence your tasks. So that was the way that you could actually number your tasks so that visually you know what's most important, and it'll sit at the top of the list. How this can be helpful is it helps you from not straying away from doing the most important item, because sometimes the most important item is a little bit more difficult, and we have a tendency to try to knock off some of the easy stuff or the less important things first, because then we can get those done and get them looked at, and then we sometimes run out of time for those important things. And then finally, number 8 is schedule time for the important tasks on your calendar. What this does is it makes protected time or an appointment with yourself. When we have a meeting or an appointment scheduled on our calendar and it's with somebody else, we've made a commitment to somebody else, we don't skip that. We don't say that that's not important, but we do that all the time with ourselves. So we want you to start thinking about adding some time in your day where it's protected time for you. You've made an appointment and a commitment to get a certain item done in that time frame, and you want to stick to that. And you can let your colleagues know that that's what the expectation is. We're going to look at the overall process of adding tasks and why these can be important way to schedule your time. I'm sure there's many of you who keep a paper list of things, or you have stickies where you keep important notes. Wouldn't it be nice if there was one place and a permanent record that existed? I know that I have many sticky notes at certain times, and when I'm looking for a certain one, sometimes those go missing. What Outlook can help you do is store it in a place where you're not losing those items, and it also allows you to prioritize and make time commitments for different things that need to get done. So we're going to look at adding tasks, and so we're going to walk through this process. And again, I want you to remember about the priority, about high priority items are things that need to get done the same day, and normal is something that can get done on another day. We're now going to look at the adding tasks function in Outlook. Wouldn't it be nice if you could always see exactly what you needed to do and when? Well, Outlook enables you to do this through its task functions, providing you with an easy and flexible way to organize and track your work. Rather than using a multitude of tools such as your inbox, notebook, calendar, papers, files, or stickies to try to remember things, you can now record and track all of your activities in one place. Before you create a task, you will need to know how long it will take, when it is due, the degree of importance, and the level of urgency. So first of all, we're going to start by clicking on our to-do panel, which is at the bottom left-hand corner, and it looks like a clipboard with a check mark. And that will open up our to-do list. Close to here near the top, it says click here to add a new task, and we're going to double click on that item. So a dialog box opens with a new task. So it looks very similar to what you would see if you're creating a new email. What we were wanting to do is we're going to add in a subject. So what the task is all about, it needs to describe and give enough information so you know what that might be. So in this particular example, I'm going to put in a task that I've been assigned, that I need to get registration numbers to a coworker named John. So I'm going to call John to get final registration numbers. Then you can see that there is an item that says start date and due date. So we're going to start it today, and I need to get those numbers into John by no later than tomorrow. So I'm going to click the next day. The next piece that we will look at is the status. So in this particular instance, I haven't started this activity, so it's listed as not started. The priority part is really quite important because this is how we prioritize what needs to be done first and what maybe can wait to a future date. So a high important item is something that must get done that day. So the start date and due date should be the same. Something that is of normal priority is an item that can have a different start date and due date. A low priority item is what I would use for repetitive reminders that can be done at a future date. Just things that you would like to keep track of, I typically will categorize as low. So in this particular instance, because it has a different start date and due date, I'm going to put the priority as normal. You have the ability to set a reminder for each individual item. So let's say that I need to have a reminder before the end of the day that this needs to be completed. I'm going to click on reminder and it's going to say the due date, but I actually want the reminder to be today. So I'm going to click on today's date and I can set what time I want that reminder to come up, to flash on my screen. So I want to set it at 4 o'clock so that I remember to do that before the end of the day. Once I've clicked on all of those and set those items up, I can save and close. So what will happen then is I will see that this item will be added onto my normal items. And you can see at the very bottom, this item will be added in to things I need to do. Sorry, it's an alphabetical order. So here it is. You can see call John to get final registration numbers. So this can be a useful tool to keep track of all the different items that come across your desk in a day. It can be used for both emails, tasks, messages that you need to return. So it can be quite helpful. So we're going to look at configuring this task folder so that it's in a way that is easy to view. So first of all, we're going to set up the view. So in the View tab, first, when we're going to click on the view bar, we're going to go to the to-do bar in layout. And we're going to ensure that the task list or to-do list is clicked off. So you can see that that goes away. To get an instant overview of your tasks by date order, we recommend using the simple list view. So to do that, we're first of all going to ensure that we're on Home, and we're going to go to Current View, and we're going to go Change View. So when we click on that, it brings up a bunch of options. You may have these options available to you on your ribbon here, but if not, you need to click that Change View. And we're going to select Simple List. So that has changed to the simple list. What we're going to do is we're going to go Change View again, and instead of clicking left, we're going to click the right button over Simple List. And when we do that, you can see that it opens up View Settings. So we're going to open up those view settings. And a dialog box will open, and we're going to pick what settings we want for our simple list. So the first one we're going to go to is Columns. And again, it's going to open up a dialog box, and we're going to, if you have items that are listed here on the right-hand side, we're going to remove those so that we start from the same point. So we're going to go to the left-hand side here, and the first icon you're going to find is Icon, sorry, and you're going to click Add, and then you're going to find Complete, and click Add, Priority, Subject, Start Date, Due Date, Date Completed, Categories, and then finally Owner. And then we're going to click OK. So now you'll see that beside the Columns button, those items are selected. Next, we're going to click on Group By, and we're going to make sure that this automatically group by according to arrangement is unchecked. And then under Group By, we are going to select Complete. And then we're going to select Ascending. And we're going to ensure that the show field in view is checked. And then we're going to click OK. The next item we're going to go to is sort. And we want to sort items by start date, which we're going to select. And we're going to make sure that we select ascending and then click OK. And then finally, we're going to click OK again. And you'll see that you have your columns listed here. And we have our items in a simple view. I quite commonly like to use my to-do list, not the simple view, because quite often I categorize not by start date. So in order to see that, I will click the to-do list from the change view, and you can see that I've prioritized my items in high, normal, and low, which So many of us are on the move, and quite often we're not in front of a computer in order to do some of these items, add tasks and add different things to our schedule. In the workbook, there is instructions about how we can set up our mobile devices to be set up and configured to assist us with productivity as well. If you need to add tasks on the fly, there is the ability to do that using your mobile device. So please take a look at the workbook for more information on how that's set up for your particular device.